The second division of conscience, and it is from the second acts and good disposition of conscience, and that is a tender or a not tender conscience. The tender conscience is only choicest of consciences, so D. Ames maketh it that which is opposed to an hard heart, the worst conscience, that is. We have some choice examples of a tender conscience, as in 2 Kings 22, verse 19, because thy heart was tender, and thou wast cast down before the face of the Lord. The word rakak, to grow soft, is ascribed to oil. Psalm 55, verse 22, his words were softer than oil. It is Proverbs 4, verse 3, tender and dear. It is ascribed to young children or young cattle. It is a conscience that easily yieldeth and rendereth to God. So in Job 31, who was so tender at the remembrance of God's rising up against him to visit him, that verse 13, he durst not despise the cause of his manservant or his maidservant when they contended with him. And in David, who when he but cut off the lap of the man's garment, who fought to cut off his life, his heart smote him. The word nakah is to strike, or kill, or plague, frequent in the book of Exodus. God shook every herb of the field. God struck or plagued the firstborn. It is sometimes to whip or scourge, so as the mark of the stroke remaineth. After David's striking of the Lord's anointed, there remained an vibex, an impression and a mark in a soft heart. Whoever would engross the name of a tender conscience to themselves, do challenge the high perfection of David, Josiah, Job, and of that which is the flower and garland of all godliness. And these that are not tender in conscience in some measure, if any will think they have it in perfection, they see little in their own heart, are deemed profane, irreligious, and men of bold and daring consciences. So we shall and must yield in a question of personal interest that these are the only perfectionists and tender consciences who are for toleration of all religion, and are professed antinomians, Arians, Arminians, Socinians, and such like. But the day shall reveal every man's work what it is. It cannot be denied, but the more tenderness, the more of God, and the more of conscience. But by tenderness is meant fear and awesomeness of sin. So no question, there is some conscience that is made of glass and is easily broken, and some of iron and brass. Lay hell on it. Let Christ say to Judas in his face, he shall betray his master, and he hath a devil. Yet his conscience doth not crow before daylight to waken him. But give us leave to contend for our righteousness. We believe we have found a ransom, and yet we hold that toleration of all religions is not far from blasphemy, and therefore to any way to monopolize the title of tender conscience to themselves as a characteristical note to difference them from Presbyterians, etc., such as dare not, out of the fear of God and reverence to their own conscience, in this point awing them, but judge liberty of conscience, fleshy liberty, in that title, seem to hold forth no tenderness of conscience at all, except they allow us to share with them in the name of tender consciences, which name I durst no more take than to call myself a perfectionist, or holier than my brethren, whereas it is more congruous to think and call ourselves the chief of sinners, to be bold with the Scriptures, and to dispense with new dreams touching God, Christ, and the mysteries of the gospel, in all heresies and blasphemies, that they may be tolerated, is boldness of conscience. Number 2, pertinacy, after conviction, and then to say, woe cannot come up to the rule, when the truth is, we cannot come up to the rule, when the truth is we will not come up to the rule, is no tenderness. Number 3, a tender conscience feareth an oath, and dare not say, every man may swear a covenant with God in his own sense. Yes, it is a Jesuit's conscience. Number 4, to carry on a design under pretense of religion, with lies, breaking of oaths, treaties, promises, is a far other thing than tenderness. Number 2, how antinomians who deny that the regenerate have any conscience of sin, or that they are to confess or be grieved in conscience for incests, adulteries, murders, rapes, oppressions, or the like, or can crowd in under the lap of this veil of tender consciences, is more than the truly godly can see. Number 3. To condemn all the godly in the three kingdoms and the churches of New England as not tender consciences, because they profess that liberty of conscience is atheistical licentiousness, seemeth to be a harder measure than these godly persons deserve, who out of some tenderness of conscience dare not but condemn liberty of sinning against the duties of this table. And therefore, if toleration of all false ways entitle men to tender consciences, because it is the opinion of some godly men, why should not these who are also godly, and out of conscience hold a contrary opinion, be also called tender conscience? And if this be, we shall not know who they are, who are to be termed tender consciences, who not. But I'd rather speak a little of a scrupulous conscience. The Scripture saith, the heart of Josiah was tender, but that he wept at the reading of the law. Sure, it was not scrupulosity, which is always a fault and disease of the conscience, as when the conscience doubts and fears for trifles, where there is no grave and weighty cause. The place, 1 Samuel 25, verse 31, in which Abigail so speaketh to David, is not to be expounded of a scrupulous, but of a justly grieved conscience. This shall be no grief unto thee, nor offense of heart unto my Lord, either that thou hast shed blood causeless, or that thou hast avenged thyself. In the Hebrew, it shall not be staggering or stumbling to thy heart, for phone is to offend. Pone is to offend, Stumble, fall, to remove out of place. Isaiah 28, verse 7. Rabbi Abraham reads it, Paki, they have made others to stumble, and peak. Nahum 2, verse 10. Knees smite one against another. The one knee in affrighted men offendeth the other, and makes the other to stumble or fall. So in a trembling conscience sin maketh the conscience to go out of the way and fall. As one knee trembleth, making another knee in a race to fall. Abigail dissuadeth David from shedding innocent blood or avenging himself on Nabal, because so to do should be no grief of conscience. It is a litote. It shall be a feast and a rejoicing of conscience, that thou hast not sinned against God. And this is to be considered, that a grieved conscience, traveling with remorse, is in so far tender, that it either abstaineth, if the sin be to be committed, or it grieveth, if it be committed, and in the truly godly soliciteth for reconciliation. A doubting conscience is ignorant of the thing done or to be done, and inclineth to neither sides. But a scrupulous conscience inclineth to the one side, but with doubting, and a trouble of mind, as the traveller walketh, but with some pain, as if there were a little stone in his shoe. The causes of a scrupulous conscience are, number 1, God's wise and just permission. Number 2, Satan's working and acting on a cold, distracted, sad bodily complexion. Number 3, ignorance, weakness of judgment. Number 4, immoderate fear troubling reason. Number 5, inconstancy of the mind. Number 6, and withal some tenderness. Gregorius said, Bonarum, conscientiarum, est ibi culpam, agnosir, ubi culpa non est. It is one of the most godly errors, and a sin that smelleth of grace. Papists, miserable comforters, say a special way to be delivered is to submit yourself to a superior's blind command. They say a priest was freed of his scruple when he obeyed Bernard's bare word and trusted in it, hearing that Vade et mea fide conscius sacrifica, going upon my faith, sacrifice confidently. It were good to use heavenly violence against scruples, fantasy will cast in. I should not pray, because God hath decreed whether I pray or pray not, the thing I suit shall never be. Number 2, it is good to turn away the mind from threatenings, He tempteth Providence, who, having a weak head, will walk upon the housetop. In rovings and grinding of a timorous mind, unbelief will break one link of God's chain, and that broken must break another, and a third, till the faith of eternal election be broken. As in a wall of 4 squared stones not well cemented, loose and break out one stone, that will break another, and that another loose a third, till the whole wall must fall. Weakness can spin out thread after thread, one doubt after another, till the poor soul be taken off the gospel foundation of consolation.